Welcome to Mediascape, Insights from Digital Changemakers, a speaker series and podcast brought to you by USC Annenberg's Digital Media Management Program. Join us as we unlock the secrets to success in an increasingly digital world.
Speaking to a Trojan grad, Greg Wasserman, today, who will proclaim his love for USC on this podcast, I'm sure many times, but also talk about the work that he does in the digital space and with his company, Time and Relationships. So, Greg, thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure, and fight on, of course. Nothing but love for my Trojans.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear how you went from your business degree to getting into the world of podcasting, digital, helping companies that we now know of as large players in the space who are startups when you started consulting with them and working with them.
Yeah, so born and raised in Chicago, went to LA for college. So there you go, fight on, undergrad all the way. I was a marketing major. And so I fell in love with it. So I guess everyone that's listening to this, marketing, media, I fell in love 20 plus years ago. Spent my career on the sales side of things. So media, selling, you name it, from Yahoo to CBS to startups and in between. And along the way, somehow ended up on the podcast side of things. Because when you started selling podcast ads, I had no clue that was going to take me to where I am today. I ended up at a startup. Day one, he's like, hey, we own 3 podcast companies. Go figure this out. And I had no clue what I was doing in that regard. All I knew is as a background in terms of how to sell media and what podcast advertising did. But from that, it was more of just understanding the technology players in the place. And as you know, listening to podcasts here, it's like podcasters care about 3 things. How do I grow my audience? How do I get more distribution? And how do I monetize? And that's literally what my quote unquote MBA in week 1 was figuring out on the job, was what people cared about. And then from there, as I like to say, it was kind of Jerry Maguire-esque. It's like, all right, how do I help you answer those 3 questions, being the platform that I am? And from there, I've kind of just fallen into podcasting because you have such unique conversations. And that's what I love about the Mediascape. It's like, you have to be vulnerable. Like, what makes a podcast, like anyone that's listening to this is like, they're listening for you because you are bringing a raw, authentic conversation from someone like me who's a guest that no one knows. And we just have this moment together, and that becomes a great thing. So I've kind of just loved the podcast space and doing that.
Yeah. Well, I obviously love it too for the same reasons. And we met on LinkedIn through the podcast platform, right? Or through our love of podcasting. To talk about that transition from the world of traditional media, yes, digital ad buying as well, but into podcasting, was it a stark difference when you started that transition? Was it fairly similar?
So to give you more context, and I was able to make the transition from advertising into partnerships, and from partnerships into podcasting. And the way that all worked out is I was hired for one job using my advertising background, but the company never ended up building the product they hired me for. And every advertiser I spoke with, they're like, I love this product, but you don't have enough scale. So I could have gone to the founders and said, hey, you brought me in too soon, but I loved what we were doing. They loved what I was available and capable of doing. So I'm like, great, let me buy us all time and let me go find new users so that I can grow my advertisers' need for having more users. And that's where I felt partnerships. And that was like a calling for me because I'm like, great, the consumer, it's the heart of everything. Like, that's what we should be doing as a marketer. That's what I should be doing as my background's in revenue. It's like, if we always put the consumer first, that's how we all end up winning, because that's why we're building whatever we're doing in the first place. So in this case, I'm like, well, the consumer's getting value, company I'm partnering with is getting value, and then the company I'm with is getting value. I'm like, this is incredible. I loved it. And you come to realize, because I believe life is about time and relationships, you have no clue where one conversation is going to lead. That really worked well with partnerships, because partner people were always like, as they say, and no offense to anyone that's the redheaded stepchild, but like the redheaded stepchild, right? It's usually a salesperson who's like, oh, go figure this out. Like no one's really given training on partnerships. All we know is like, we love to talk to people. We feel that there's a there, and how do we uncover that? And that there's growth for a company by doing that. I found my people with partnerships. And then like we fast forward to the next company that's like, hey, go figure out this podcasting. And what's great about partnership people and podcast people is they both are community focused. You can agree to this. Case in point of our conversations alone, we're all there to help each other. We're all there to support because your winning is my winning. And you go on someone's show, I go on another person's show, we promote a show. Like it's all kind of in that regards. And that's very similar to partnerships. So that's what ultimately led me to like, ooh, I found my partner side and I found people in podcasting. How do I combine those two? And that's ultimately been what I've been able to do.
Yeah. To your point, I think people, they know that they want partnerships, but they don't really understand how to execute them, what to ask for, how to make it a win-win, right? How to monetize it, perhaps. And so that's definitely a skill. Like I think of every person who comes on the podcast as a partner because we're having a really great conversation. There are often people who will recommend somebody to be on my podcast who they think would be fantastic, or they will, we'll talk about work and who we can recommend to each other, or if we want to work together. It's the start of a relationship.
100%. That's what I love about podcasting. And that's literally what I coach and tell people. It's like, stop thinking about monetization. I guess I'm jaded in the background of like media, right? It's like, there's so many other ways you can make money in podcasting besides just advertising. And I love telling others about that opportunities. But if you look at the mediascape, and it's like, most of it is all tied to how do you make money in advertising. And there's other ways that you can use this medium. And therefore, you also look at just anything in general from a media management, PR, earned, paid, and owned, like all those different components that come into things. It's like, how do you leverage that entire mix as opposed to the only way I can make money is sponsorships?
Yeah. Yeah. Using the peso model. That's one of my favorite things to do. And it's interesting how many people outside of the public relations world haven't heard it expressed in that way. We might talk about the marketing mix model, right? If you're an MBA student or a business, an undergrad business student, integrated marketing strategies, but using that paid, earned, shared, owned model really helps you see how you can continue the amplification of that interview, of that piece of content across platforms, leverage it. And then, we were just talking before we jumped on too about the fact that people are seeing a lot of value in affiliate programs. That's another thing people don't always get right. Same, right, with partnerships. With affiliate programs, it's not just something I could share on my podcast. I'm going to share it on my social media. I'm going to put it in my newsletter, on my website, and a lot of other places to extend the life of that brand's awareness as associated with me. And then hopefully, because I like a brand, other people like the brand, and then I'm able to pay for my podcast work, right?
100%. Someone explained it to me, so I can't take full credit for this explanation, but you've got affiliate, referral, and ambassador, and everything just kind of gets grouped together as an affiliate, right? That's I'm making money, and people who are like, my job is to make money, and that's an affiliate. But like most of us are referrals of the products we use.
Right.
And so if a company just goes ahead and say, hey, here's a 10% referral commission, if you just tell people, you're most likely going to tell more people because you've now got something to show. You're going like, oh, here's a link. Here's something I can share with you, as opposed to here's just something I'm telling you about. It also gives you something physical to provide and easier for a person to remember. And so these are all little things that like brands don't do a good job of or don't understand. It's like, spend the little money on getting an affiliate program set up and referral program set up just because you want to get some of those people to go share it more, and they'll share more because they now have something to share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talked about affiliates, referrals, and ambassadors. So talk a little bit more about the delineation between the three.
So your affiliates are going to be those that literally they're making their money. Publications are probably a great one, or they have a large YouTube following, or you're a large podcast, and it's like, great, I'm going to go ahead and promote, and that's how I'm making my money is being a promoter of whatever this is. And I've amassed an amazing audience, and therefore I'm now monetizing that audience that I've grown into making whatever affiliate revenue I want. The referrals, those are kind of like your friends and family. I'm a user of your product. Am I making $10 on just making the commission on this? It's not going to make or break my bank account, right? But I'm not going to say no to it. But like, they love your product. They're the people who are like, I'm just going to tell people about this. If I get the nice little, at the end of the day, check, great. But that's just the feel good of knowing that, like, I use this product. I want to tell other people about using this product. As a company, I want to empower that person to do so. The ambassadors, I mean, they're screaming this. They're just saying, what can I do for you? You want me on a webinar? You want me to do something? I will do things to help because I love this company. I want to see this company succeed. I also can't see them fail because I'm invested in it from a user of it, whatever that intrinsic value may be. But ultimately, that is a person. You're like, great, you're out there, you're spreading the news. I can say, hey, I'm setting up an event in Chicago. I don't know anyone in Chicago. You're in Chicago. You love my product. Can you help me on the ground do something? Good example.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you. And one thing we were also talking about was affiliate programs again for podcasters. And you were saying that there are some types of affiliates that are doing better than others. So for those listening, because a lot of students in the DMM program and other programs they are either brand ambassadors or affiliates or monetize somehow on social media, or they want to know how they would wrap that into a marketing and strategic plan for the business they're proposing at the end of their degree program and their capstone. So Amazon versus Shopify stores versus other ways to work with affiliates, influencers, etc.
I mean, it's the wild, wild west in some regards, but yeah, there is. So you can go ahead. I can sign up for Amazon and become just a normal person. Go ahead, sign up, become great. I want to be an affiliate of Amazon, and anything that I want to share, I can go ahead and get my link, share it with someone. And the nice thing about Amazon is people are always buying stuff. So whether I send it to you for a piggy bank, and the next thing you know, you add toilet paper and other things to your shopping cart and check out, I'm going to get a commission on all those things in your cart, which is great. TikTok and those come along. I've not used it. I'm not on TikTok, so I can't talk specifically about it. But I know the TikTok shop has become a big thing that a lot of creators and influencers are finding a lot more value in and monetizing and making a higher commission on that. You and I were talking about another platform for podcasters and how to use that. But like, I tell this to people all the time, like, there's so many ways to make money without having to spend your career like I did calling up sponsors and going, hey, will you sponsor my company, right? Like, that is something that always boggles my mind. It's like, your zone of influence and your zone of genius is not what I got paid handsomely to go and call brands and then make them as a sponsor. So why don't you focus on what your core business is? And there's other ways that you can, whether it's an affiliate or you just start acting as if, right? So some of the times it's like, I'm just going to get a free sponsor. Hey, let's do something in trade just so I can have this was sponsored by. And then just by having one logo on there, you're able to go to others and say, hey, would you like to be involved? People don't take a bigger advantage out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's funny, the number of people who think, gosh, I can't monetize my podcast, whether they've started a podcast, right? They're in the world, or they're looking externally and saying, podcasts must be really hard to monetize. And then the people who are like, oh, I've got this. I understand how to work with, in collaboration with other organizations, or to get sponsors, or to use affiliate links to say I'm sponsored by, or to bring in money. What are some of the other formats that you've seen work effectively for podcasters to monetize?
I mean, my biggest one that I coach people on is when you treat your podcast as a part of your business, as opposed to its standalone item that you have to make money off of, you become successful. So most people are like, oh, I started a podcast. It's not making money for me, so I'm going to stop it. But in reality, they never realized what is the reason that they're actually doing a podcast in the first place. And to understand that, what is your actual business, right? So like, what is the business reason you would start a podcast? If it is, I just want to be known, like, and trust and build a brand ambassadorship so that more people then hire me for consulting, then great, be strategic about that. And then you're not trying to monetize it. Your monetization is ultimately leading to jobs, speaking, to whatever the case may be. Too many people are thinking like, I need to make money off the podcast from a sponsorship standpoint, as opposed to like, what is the core reason you're doing this? And what is the long-term play that you're ultimately using this podcast for? And then if you think about podcasts as opposed to, if we go back to the peso model, it's like, great, podcasting becomes the greatest engine for media because it's two of us talking, if you use it from a conversation standpoint, and go, great, record this as video, repurpose it, take the audio, distribute it, and then cut this down into anything that you would want: blog, newsletter, LinkedIn post, social promotion. And once you realize that a person doesn't have to listen, like, I'd be honored if your audience listened to us for 40 minutes or whatever we go for, right? But it's even amazing if someone just goes ahead and takes a look at your LinkedIn post and go like, hey, here's a great episode that I just recorded with Greg. And I'm like, great, I just got recognition, people engaged, right? All that is know, like, and trust in building. And that then leads to wherever it is you want to go. So there's so many different ways you can monetize. You can go down the community route, not my favorite. I love community. That's a different side of what I focus on. But like the paid community component, that's a hard one to do. But you can also make money off of that, no different than trying to get a sponsor. Now you're staying in your zone of genius of like, my community is focused on what I'm here to do, what I'm here to teach, as opposed to me spending the time trying to go get a sponsor. I'm now still focused on the people that are engaged with me. I'm having those one-on-one conversations. Like, that is more use of your time than trying to go to sponsor.
I love you sharing your perspective because you have this background in other media before moving to podcasting. So thank you. Greg, your company is Time and Relationships, which I would argue are two of the most important things that we have. So was that the name? I mean, was that, the why? You just said, oh, these are two things I'm really invested in that have really helped shape my career. So this is a given that this is what I'm naming my brand.
It came from, I guess, if we look at it, pulling threads, right? And so the thread was, I've always believed, especially being in revenue, that I reach out to someone and I'm being paid by a company to sell whatever my widget is in that regards. But in reality, I'm selling myself to create a connection, because no matter where I was in my career, younger or now older, we're most likely, at least my generation, our generation, we're not staying in our career for 40 years, getting the watch and having a nice retirement like our parents potentially, right? That's just not a thing. So like, to understand that just from a simple standpoint of wherever you are, wherever I am, we're probably not going to end up here for the next 40 years. Mm-hmm. So let's connect, and whether what I'm selling makes sense or not, let's at least open that relationship. Because I guarantee you, and this is my philosophy, is I'm talking to others me's who have other products to sell. So if I don't have the right solution for you, I have to establish myself as going like, great, how do I save your inbox from all these cold calls that you're getting, going like, look, you should talk to Anika. She's got something you'd want based on what you've just told me. And so that's how I lived my career. And from that understanding of all about relationships, you close deals because people know, like, and trust you. Mm-hmm. But it's also a matter of what I'm selling today may not be there in the future, but it's all about the timing. And the universe puts us together when you're meant to be. So if you say, hey, Greg, the timing's not right, I feel terrible, my quotas aren't getting hit, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you're right, it probably wasn't the right timing. Let's nurture this relationship instead of just trying to force you into it. Now, of course, in sales and revenues, you've got to do a little bit of both, but that's literally where the mindset came. I didn't come into the life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation is going to lead. So let's have it until, probably COVID. So a few years ago, where it all actually started clicking, going like, hold on, I truly believe this. Now I've just got to keep saying it as opposed to I'm not sharing it. Now I'm sharing it.
Yeah. I have one observation and then a question. As you were saying that, I was thinking about my other podcast and the fact that most of the people that I interview on it booked January or February of 2024. So they have waited an entire year for this interview. But as you mentioned, I believe that this is the right time. My podcast has grown a lot. It's on the Apple charts in 10 countries. There's a lot more benefit to their businesses and to them as guests than there would have been a year ago. Now, a year ago, yeah, it was doing really well, but it's gone over one hump. Now, it can go over some more. But I think that for their businesses, the fact that they were willing to wait, that they saw the value in building this relationship, that we're able to correspond. And some people, we didn't build a relationship until they actually came on for the interview. Other people, we did. But that's been a really fascinating case study for myself. But it does show about the power of time and relationships. And one thing that we impart on our students at USC is that the relationships they build with their classmates, whether physically or whether online, is one of the most important things that they'll get out of this experience. And I know that you've also found that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the USC perspective.
I mean, I'll geek out on that one. Like, right? USC sells on the Trojan Network, and it is truly the greatest network. Like, living out in LA for 20 plus years, having friends from Chicago, so Big Ten schools, like no one else ever talks about, oh yeah, I can go and look at someone's LinkedIn and say, oh, they went to Michigan, and go, hey, I went to Michigan too. They're like, cool, right? Like that's usually the response. Whereas like, hey, I went to USC, where else is someone going to go? Like, fight on, let's talk,
Exactly.
right? Like that is it. I mean, I don't even know. Wolverine I don't even know. Yeah, whatever their slogan is, go blue. There you go. But it's just not there. So it's truly been nothing. Everything has been a relationship from that regards. But if you just want to pull that thread and go, okay, I'm going to go reach out to old Trojans and say, hey, I'm a fellow Trojan. I would love to talk to you. Most likely they will take the time and connect with you because we want that Trojan legacy. We want to continue to push that. USC does an amazing job in selling that alumni network. Since I was an undergrad, it's become even better. And so it's been exciting to see how USC has continued to evolve to help current students, existing alumni, and everyone in between.
And is that one of the techniques that you've used when you're doing cold outreach on LinkedIn or to a company?
When you're reaching out, you've got so many different techniques and saying like, oh, I see you went to this school, and everyone's like, all right, phony, whatever it is. But like the nice thing is like, you can say, I went to USC. Good example. Last week. Yeah, it was last week. Literally saw someone went to USC. He's an MBA grad. And I'm like, hey, undergrad SC. My subject line was go Trojans. Week later, he wrote back and he said, fight on, right? So like, that's just a great little story there alone on the connection piece. I don't use it for anything else besides, oh, you went to USC, right? Because you went to Michigan. I'm not going to say that, right? It just doesn't work as well. But for USC people, 100%, because there's a pride in having that word. And if someone's like, did I have a good time at school? Great. Then you'll find out that that person didn't enjoy, but I'm yet to really have that experience. So I'll keep going with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hint for all of the students who are listening to this episode. So we've talked a lot about the power of community, of time and relationships, whether it's the USC community, the podcasting community, which also is hands down one of the most welcoming, amazing communities. Collaboration over competition, is a great phrase to use that really applies here. When you think about the revenue mindset, because I know you've talked through, people sometimes think the podcast is what you're supposed to monetize. And yes, that's great, but you can use it for so many other things in your business to monetize. What are some of the things people need to do to draw those connections to get the revenue growth in terms of how do they, because some people come on podcasts and they're all business and they're not really giving you the things that you can pull from the personal narratives, the stories, the ups and downs, the things that personalize them and humanize them to a listener and make them go, ooh, that story really captured me. I aspire to be like that person, or I want to try their brand now, right? Which all leads to revenue growth. So what are some things that people need to think about when they're going into an interview situation, whether it's a podcast, TV, radio, online publication, whatever it might be, to build that human element when it might be uncomfortable to do so?
The greatest thing I always learned, and if I haven't mentioned this, I apologize, but like podcasting is all about vulnerability, right? So lean into that, and if nothing else, COVID has taught us, especially as we work from home, right? Like dog walks in, whatever, like that's the human nature, that's a human condition that we are currently living in. And the polished, I mean, look, I did put on a button-down shirt for this conversation. Otherwise, yeah, I'd be in my hoodie right now. But the biggest thing would be vulnerable, be understanding of that component, that if you were preparing for something, lean into that piece, have that conversation, understand that you can and should be vulnerable because people will connect with you more. And so if we think about brand building as a whole, people want to work with people they know, like, and trust. So how do you know, like, and trust me if like you sense a BS meter, or you don't feel I'm authentic, or I'm just trying to sell you? Which, truth be told, anyone listening, like I say all the time, life is about time in relationships. Everyone's like, oh, you're just so salesy. I'm like, no, like that is truly what I believe, right? Like it does sound like a sales slogan, which is why I used it so often, because it's just memorable. It's easy. It's Greg is time in relationships. Perfect. But like that is who I am. That's truly what I believe. That's what you and I have connected over. People want you to be authentic. I was just listening to another podcast, and part of the whole thing is people are so, let's talk about the weather, let's talk about the news, let's talk about these other things, but like we want personal connections, which is what I love about podcasting. What I love about that interview format is like, let's get nitty gritty. Let's have these geek out moments. Let's talk about the real things. That also then is going to build a better, if we go to the peso model, better ability there from a media standpoint.
Yeah. Well, and for somebody who's not comfortable, I'm comfortable, like just I'll answer any question, talk about anything pretty much. But there are a lot of people who need to build up to that. So will you recommend that they maybe practice a couple of examples that they can use over and over again on different podcasts? If they're, for instance, just going on business podcasts, they have that one vulnerable moment when the sale didn't go right, or they had something that was a failure that was really a lesson. What are some of the constructs we can use for that storytelling to pull them out and get them, used to being a little bit out of their comfort zone so that they can show up authentically to other people or vulnerably to other people?
Look, you can go down the what is it, the SWOT, right? Situation. I'm blanking now. Switch rate, action, tactic, right? But yeah, have a couple stories in mind, but I have no clue what questions you're going to be asking me, right? Like, so some shows they're going to give you like, hey, what questions you're asking? What are we talking about? I usually wing it, good or bad. I have no clue where this is going to take me, but that's also my belief. Like, I have no clue where one conversation is going to go, and like we just pull a thread and we go with it. So be open to that. But yeah, practice, have a couple stories that you want to talk about. Preparation's key in that regards. As you and I were talking, like, hold on, who's the audience that's listening to this show? Like, what stories would make sense? Clearly, everyone, I'm going to talk about USC multiple times, because how can I not, as a fellow Trojan, but also working in media for the last 20 years? Like, great, there's many things that we can talk about in that regard. So if you're bringing someone on, or you're a guest going into someone else's show, know who their audience is. But I guess this also goes to ask the questions. Hey, before I come on your show, I know I should have done my research, whatever the case may be, but like, you know better than I do. Who's the core person? Is there anything that you want me to cover? Like, you can have pull these threads and ask these questions, and that's okay to do. So the person that's coming on your show that signed up, that you had them fill out a form a year ago, right? Let's be honest. I filled out this form, I don't know how long ago, but I don't remember what I filled out in the form. So I can imagine someone who filled this out a year ago, right? I can't remember what I did last week, yet alone I'm sick now. I can't remember what I did earlier today, right? So like, it's just having those vulnerable moments of realizing we're human. I had a call today and I'm like, you're not getting the best version of myself. I'm sick. My brain's foggy. Why are we talking? And then once we start talking, I'm like, oh, okay, now it's all coming back. But like, those are the easiest ways to have vulnerability. No, does it make the greatest soundbite? Like someone that's listening to this right now going like, Greg, probably just shut up. Great. But in reality, that is the human connection. That is me. That is the raw. And that's what people want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the important thing is you did show up, right?
That is the biggest thing. I think consistency is key, right? You've been doing this. You've been able to get to where you are from a podcast standpoint because consistently every day you're putting out content. So anyone that's in your program knows like you got to keep showing up. Sure, maybe there's a student who never shows up and they get an A. Jealous of that person, but you can't do that always in life, right? So consistently is key. Consistently show up, consistently reach out to people. So if we go back to time and relationships, for me, I'm the kind of person who does those text messages, like literally 10 o'clock last night, my friends popped in my head. I know they're asleep because of the time difference. I'm like, just thinking of you, right? Like those are simple things that we can all just do to create those relationships. So if you are going on someone else's show, how do I help you? Like me coming on your show is you helping me. What could I do to help you? And some of the time your guests won't do that. So as a host, you've got to do a better job to empower that person to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really great point. What does your day-to-day look like?
Right now, I'm on a project, so it's a little different. But normally, I like to fill my calendar with calls. Time blocking, I've learned, is a key piece. But once again, if I believe that you have no clue where one conversation can go, calendar's open. Let's have a conversation. I'll figure something out, whether it's a connection, whether it's a business, whether it's something of value that both of us are able to walk away with, right? So the more conversations I can have, great.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm an extrovert. So I also want to talk to people. So last week, not being on the phone and just researching, I was drained, which is also probably why I got sick, because I'm like, I need to talk. Like talking fuels me, right? So if that's something you like, you're going to work on revenue, you're going to work in sales, right? But for me, day to day, let's have conversations, let's connect, let's think about who I connect with other people so that good ideas can come together. Anyone that's listening, right? You always want to have someone like yourself, where it's like, I'm a connector. You have a business idea. Well, I know other people that I can help you with that business idea. And I think that's the biggest thing I could say. If you walk away with anything, ask for help. That would probably be the biggest thing. Most people won't ask for help, and that goes back to vulnerability. But it's actually a huge lift if we can all just ask for help, because now you are actually empowering another person to go, wow, they think highly of me, that they're actually asking me to do something or help them with something. That's a confidence boost for that person. But also, you know it when you help someone, how that feels. So I would definitely say all of that. I know I went on a tangent on answering your question of like, what's my day-to-day? Day-to-day is let's have conversations and figure out where I can create partnerships, where I can create connections, where we can create revenue, or just good opportunities, because good people can meet good people, and it doesn't have to be a revenue tied to it, but you just know these people should connect.
Yeah, 100%. That's how we started. I think he just reached out. We had a connection call. I said, okay, jump on the podcast. And we'll figure out the rest later. We'll figure out who we can introduce each other to. But that's such an important part of the networking aspect too, is you don't have to know where it's going to lead. As you've said many times earlier, you just have to make that connection. You have to ask for a meeting, maybe have a couple things teed up that you want to ask about, and then see where else it goes.
I'll actually pull that thread. Our connection came because we were both speaking at an event. And I reached out on LinkedIn to people that were speaking at an event. And our paths didn't cross at the event because, as we all know at conferences, good luck running into everyone that you would want to run into. Good problem to have. But also, then I think you posted something on LinkedIn and I saw it. And I'm like, oh my God, we still haven't connected here. And that's where months later, we're like, all right, we've got to make this happen. Goes back to create the connection early on. but the timing wasn't right until now. And look at where we've been able to take that conversation connection since then. So if we go back full circle to those people that signed up a year ago, the timing is now for many reasons. Some may get it, some may not, but you got to be consistently showing up. You got to consistently ask for help and continue to do the work because someone's got to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you just gave a really great end cap to this conversation. And I think all that's left to say is that for everybody listening, Greg is ready to start a relationship with you. So I'm going to include his LinkedIn in the show notes, and know that you have a warm, welcoming Trojan alum who's willing to speak to you about probably not just podcasting and revenue, but in any number of things that you want to ask as you're going into your world of work and business and life.
Yeah, I love being a plethora of industries. So let's talk.
Awesome. And with that, thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode of Mediascape, Insights from Digital Changemakers. I'm one of your hosts, Annika Jackson, and I'll be back again with another great guest next week.
To learn more about the Master of Science in Digital Media Management program, visit us on the web at dmm.usc.edu.